Hello, I'm Ken Arscott, your narrator. As a security officer, you may be thinking, why do I have to be concerned with protecting a crime scene? My job is to patrol posts, check people into the building, or drive a patrol car. The fact is, you're more than likely to be the first person to discover a crime scene and the first authorized person to take charge protecting it until the police arrive. I'm sure you watched the CSI TV series where they use modern science and technology to solve crimes. The fact is, most of the techniques that they use are true. Crime scene search investigation is a powerful tool for convicting criminals. As of today, protecting a crime scene has become essential. This training video is intended to teach you how important protecting a crime scene actually is. A crime is an act or the commission of an act that is forbidden by a public law and that makes the offender liable to punishment by that law. A more understandable definition is, a crime is a set of facts or circumstances forbidden by law and punishable by jail or a fine. A crime scene is a location where a crime took place or where evidence is found. A crime scene doesn't necessarily have to be at the place where the crime occurred. It could be where the suspect disposed of evidence. A couple of examples are, the knife used in an assault was found outside in the parking lot. A ski mask was found in the alley behind the building. Those locations are what are known as secondary crime scenes. A set of specific rules regarding the protection of crime scenes cannot be applied to every case. That's because every incident has different characteristics. However, there are some general rules that can apply to all crime scenes, starting with petty theft and similar misdemeanors usually do not receive the same in-depth investigation as a murder, rape, or burglaries. The severity of the crime determines what level of crime scene investigation is needed. Although the official name for a crime is determined by the police, you should know when crime scene containment is necessary. 90% of the answer is just by using common sense. By the way, when you evaluate whether to set up or not to set up a crime scene containment, always make your decision on the side of caution. In other words, if you're not sure, begin the crime scene containment. It's better to overreact than to do nothing. For example, in a clothing store, a thief grabs a shirt off of a rack and runs out the door. That obviously would not require full crime scene containment. On the other hand, while on patrol, you discover someone who has been shot in the head lying on the floor. Obviously, that would require full crime scene containment. If you can't lock the door, be creative. Look for items to barricade the crime scene, such as rope, furniture, masking tape, duct tape, a trash can, a ladder, or anything that you can find nearby. Never use anything from inside the crime scene as the barrier. The more serious the crime, the more curiosity seekers will show up. Many times, curiosity seekers inadvertently destroy evidence. Politely ask them to stay in front of the barrier. If you have a suspect at the crime scene, keep him in front of the barrier. Try to keep him there until the police arrive. The same goes for witnesses. Ask them to wait there until the police arrive as well. Keep the witness and suspect separate. Allowing them to talk to each other could jeopardize the investigation. Ask them politely not to talk to each other until the police arrive. What is evidence? Evidence is an item that possesses individual characteristics, meaning that they are unique from all other similar or different items. Incidentally, sometimes evidence can be more reliable than an eyewitness's testimony. Evidence includes anything that can be used to determine the truth. It can be verbal or physical. There are other types of evidence, such as circumstantial evidence, but for this training session, we're only going to be concerned with verbal and physical evidence. Physical evidence is any object that can prove that a crime has been committed, shown to a suspect to get a confession, can provide a link between a crime and its victim, provide a link between a crime and the perpetrator, place someone at the scene of the crime, establish the identity of someone, exonerates the innocent, corroborate testimony. There are more, but you get the idea. An example of verbal evidence would be while you're protecting a crime scene, you overheard the suspect tell someone that he was glad that he stabbed the victim. You could advise the police and then later testify what you heard in court. Wearing rubber or plastic gloves is the best way to keep from putting your fingerprints on evidence. Most security companies do not issue these gloves as part of your equipment. However, many companies do issue blood-borne pathogen kits, which include plastic gloves. I suggest that you get yourself a pair of plastic gloves like medical personnel use. You can probably get a pair free from a local doctor's office or hospital. If you have to buy them, they cost less than a penny. Wearing plastic gloves at a crime scene will go a long way to avoid compromising it. By the way, these gloves will come in handy if you ever have to apply first aid to a victim. As I said in the beginning, the primary objective of this training video is to show you how to protect a crime scene. Let's go over some basic procedures to assist you in accomplishing that. The success of a criminal investigation and a conviction often hinges on the actions and steps taken by the first officer at the crime scene. That could be you. There's no insignificant evidence. I can't stress this enough. Everything at a crime scene, from a weapon on the floor to a strand of hair in a sink, are considered evidence. Something that appears insignificant to you could actually turn out to be the one item that solves the case. The last thing that you want to do is accidentally destroy evidence. This usually happens as a result of inexperience. Experience comes with a lot of hands-on action. In this training session, we will try to give you a jump start towards that goal. Saving lives is your first priority and takes precedence over all other considerations. If you find an injured person at a crime scene, first aid should be administered, even if it means that valuable evidence could be destroyed. Don't approach the crime scene in haste. When you discover a crime scene, take a deep breath, relax, remain calm, and be cautious. When you come upon a crime scene, evaluate it. Ask yourself, what happened here? Is this a crime? What should I be looking for? Objectively focus your attention on where evidence is or could be, such as possible fingerprints on doors, doorknobs, light switches, and all other smooth-surfaced areas. Also, areas where liquids, fibers, or powder can be found. Look for short-lived things. What do I mean by short-lived things? Short-lived things are items or articles that the position of them could have been changed, such as doors, where they open, closed, locked, or unlocked when you arrived. Windows, were they open or closed when you arrived? Lights, were they on or off when you arrived? Window dressings, like shades, curtains, or blinds, were they open or closed when you arrived? Odors, did you smell cigarette smoke, gas, gasoline, gunpowder, perfume, and so forth? Then there are date and time indicators. A few examples are, is there old mail or newspapers stacked up? Are the clocks stopped? Is there spoiled food? Are there items that should have been hot or cold that are now at room temperature? Is the radio or television on? And so forth. The primary crime scene is usually where the actual crime was committed. Secondary crime scenes are where additional evidence is discovered. Sometimes there are tertiary crime scenes. Tertiary means 3 or more. Here are some examples. A criminal, using a gun, kidnaps a woman from the front of the apartment complex that you're assigned to protect. During the struggle, she loses her shoe. He then puts her in his car and drives behind the complex into an alley nearby. He takes her out of the car and tries to assault her. When she resists, he hits her on the head with his gun. She starts bleeding profusely. She manages to escape and runs away. The perpetrator chases and finds her in the building's rear exit doorway and shoots her in the head, killing her. In this scenario, there are 4 crime scenes. Because murder is the more serious crime, the exit doorway becomes the primary crime scene, even though it didn't happen first. The others are secondary and tertiary crime scenes. As a security officer, you could discover any one of them. You could find the victim's body in the doorway, find the abandoned car in the apartment complex parking lot, discover blood in the rear alley, or find the victim's shoe in front of the apartment building. Whichever crime scene that you discover, it's now yours to protect. Using a search warrant, the police search a suspect's home. Even though the suspect did not commit the crime at that location, evidence of the crime may be found there. For example, some of the victim's property, the weapon used, and so forth. In this example, every room in the house that evidence was found are separate secondary or tertiary crime scenes. Chain of custody could be the difference between a guilty verdict and a not guilty verdict. The good news is that it's a fairly straightforward procedure. Let's say while you're patrolling your post, you observe a bloody knife in a doorway. You call the police. When police officer Smith arrives, you show him where the knife is. He calls for CSI. When police officer technician White arrives, Officer Smith shows her where the knife is. Technician White photographs the knife, seals it in a plastic bag, and marks it as evidence. She then turns it over to the police evidence control officer, Officer Jones. Officer Jones logs it in and stores it at the police department's evidence building. On the day of the trial, evidence officer Smith brings the knife to court and turns it over to Prosecutor Adams to use as evidence. Prosecutor Adams has to prove to the court how the knife being used as evidence got to the court. He then has everyone who was involved with the knife from the time it was discovered until the trial testify. First up would be you. You tell the court of the circumstances under which you found the knife and that you pointed it out to police officer Smith. Officer Smith would testify that he showed where the knife was to CSI technician White. Technician White then testifies that she photographed it and bagged it. She then turned it over to evidence officer Adams. Officer Adams would testify that he took the knife and secured it in a locked room at the police evidence building. Officer Adams would also testify that today he removed the knife from a locked evidence room and brought it directly to the court. Incidentally, if another technician tests the knife, that person would also have to testify as well. This all seems like a lot of work, but if it wasn't done in that chain of event order, the case could be dismissed. If any one of these people in that scenario didn't show up for court, the judge could rule that the knife is inadmissible. The logic is, how could the judge or jury, for that matter, know that it is the exact knife that was found at the scene? How would they prove that no one tampered with the knife during the time that it was missing? I say missing because no one testified for the missing time frame. Now you can see how important chain of custody is. Most police departments require that when any hard surface physical evidence does not have a serial number, that the police officer or the security officer who discovered it is required to mark the item with their initials and date it when it was found. Soft evidence, such as clothing, the initials can be written on the inside labels. Now, if the custody chain breaks, the rest of the witnesses can still testify using the initials on the knife as verification. It's not as strong as a chain of custody, but it will almost certainly not be dismissed. Okay, let's get back to protecting and preserving a crime scene. If you have a cell phone with a camera, you might be able to photograph the interior from the entry point without going inside. Notice I used the word might. I'll get into why I said that shortly. If your cell phone has video, slowly video the walls in a circular motion and scan the floors. Don't move too fast. Scan slow enough so that it's clear as to what the viewer will be looking at. Obviously, all involvement at a crime scene has to be restricted. The primary reason for not going into a crime scene is contamination. Whenever you walk into a crime scene, you always take probable evidence out with you when you leave. I don't mean that you put something in your pocket. What I am saying is that when anyone, not just you, walks through a crime scene, they always inadvertently take away potential evidence. An example of taking away evidence. While walking through the crime scene, the soles of your shoes will pick up and destroy evidence, especially minuscule substances such as fibers, fluids, chemicals, and powders, etc. On the flip side, you will always leave substances that are not relevant to the crime. As you walk, the soles of your shoes will drop off fibers and fluids that you picked up outside of the crime scene. Never pick up something at a crime scene. You not only contaminate the evidence by moving it, but you could smudge fingerprints, or even worse, leave your prints on the object. Even if you are wearing plastic gloves, you still shouldn't pick up anything unless it's absolutely necessary for safety reasons. Although fingerprints can be identified, they don't come with name tags. If you've touched something and leave your fingerprints, the CSI technicians will spend a lot of time trying to identify whose prints they belong to, only to find out that they're yours. That would be pretty embarrassing, wouldn't it? Here's a diagram of a burglary crime scene at an office complex. While patrolling, you discover a door to a business that's been forced open. Your first step is to call 911 and then call your supervisor. Remember, the perpetrator or someone else could still be inside. Remember when I said earlier you might be able to enter a crime scene? Here's why. Crime scenes are almost always the foundation of a crime, especially major crimes. Crime scenes should never be entered by anyone unless it's their job. Last but not least, crime scenes can be dangerous, especially when weapons have been used. Even most police officers are not authorized to enter crime scenes. Access is for CSI technicians and the detectives assigned to the case. Remember, you're a security officer, not a police officer. No one will fault you for waiting until the police arrive and take over. Security officers and security guards are required to observe and report, not to put themselves in harm's way by entering into a crime scene. SGM vigorously recommends that for the personal safety of security officers and security guards, that they never enter a crime scene under any circumstances. SGM takes no responsibility for any security officer or security guard actions or the results of such actions when entering and exiting any crime scene. If they do, the security officer or security guard assumes full responsibility for their actions and the results of their actions. The following is a demonstration of some of the police procedures regarding crime scenes. It is shown for information purposes only, and it is not recommended for security officers or security guards. While still at the entrance or doorway to the crime scene, shout out, "Police, is anyone in here? Police, is anyone in here?" If there's no answer and your backup has not arrived, you should remain at the break-in point. When backup does arrive, shout out again, "Police, is anyone in here?" several times. If there is no response, use a camera or cell phone to take pictures of the entry door and its damage. Do not go inside, wait for CSI. Shout, "Police, is anyone in here?" If someone responds, ask them if they're injured. If they say yes, Then it becomes a more serious situation. Even when backup is there, be cautious. The only consideration for going in would be if a seriously injured victim is inside. Take out your weapon. If the lights are out, turn them on by using something that will not smudge any latent prints. As you proceed, mentally note the exact route that you're taking. Maintain verbal contact with your backup. As you progress, shout out, "Front office clear," "Rear office clear," and so forth. If you discover an unconscious victim, advise your backup that you have an unconscious person and have them call for an ambulance while you administer first aid. Fourth, do not touch or move anything. If you accidentally do move something, move it back the way it was. When you get to the victim, give first aid. When you exit, use the crime scene exit process. If there are any other exit doors open, you need to lock them. You don't want anyone walking in and contaminating the crime scene. Then take the exact same route you used when coming in. If possible, try to step in the same footprint spots that you made when coming in. This will limit contaminated areas. Use your cell phone camera to take pictures or video of every wall and floor area as you proceed out. That was a brief overview of crime scene search procedures used by police officers. Their actual procedures are much more detailed. As I said, it was given to you for information purposes only. Now, let's get back to your responsibilities at a crime scene. Never pick a gun up by putting a pencil in the barrel or in the trigger guard to lift it. The fact is, you shouldn't even touch it. If the gun or other dangerous weapon absolutely needs to be moved for safety reasons, the safest way is to grasp the checkered area of the grip using 2 fingers like this, and then move it into a secure area. Then document it in a notebook and make an incident report. Describe how you picked it up, where it was before you moved it. Before you go off, check for secondary crime scenes and get something to block the door or entry point, such as a chair, trash can, box, ladders, etc. Make a sign on a sheet of paper or tear a page from your notebook and write the words "crime scene, do not enter." Then attach that to a barrier or the door frame if you found the door open. By the way, never close a door if it was found open. Remember, the CSI team wants to find the crime scene exactly as it was when you found it. If it's obvious that there are no other secondary crime scenes, it's not necessary to create a barrier in front of the door or entry point. And don't let anyone in until the police take over. When they do arrive, remember the 4 W's: who, what, when, and where. Who found it? Who are the victims? Who are the witnesses? Who is the suspect? And so forth. What you saw when you first found the crime scene. What time was it discovered? What is the address, floor, room number, etc.? Be sure to get the police officer's name for your report. Your responsibility for the crime scene containment just ended unless the police ask you to continue assisting them. If the crime scene is outside and it's raining or snowing, try to protect the evidence by covering it with cardboard boxes or newspapers. If there are footprints in the mud on a slope that the rain could wash away, try to divert the rain's runoff from the footprint by plowing a small trench around it with your baton or a stick. Notes should be made and documented in chronological order. By chronological, I mean in the order that the events occurred. For example, 0200 hours, I found the door to suite 359 damaged and open. 0205 hours, I called 911 and notified my dispatcher and initiated my crime scene protection procedures. 0230 hours, the police arrived, and so forth. Here are some of the other entries that you will need to document. Exact location, date and time you discovered the crime scene, type of crime, was it a burglary, a homicide, rape, so forth. Description of the crime, if you took pictures or video, Note the times. If you don't have a cell phone with a camera, make sketches as accurate as you can and include the locations where you found the weapon, a burglary tool, or other suspected evidence. Date and time you reported to the police and your dispatcher. Name of the first police officer who arrived at the crime scene. The names of anyone who entered the crime scene before the police arrived. Who was at the crime scene when you got there? There are more. The crime will dictate what additional and relevant facts should be included. Notes should be complete, thorough, clear, and legible. The last step you are required to do is make an incident report. Make the number of copies that your company requires. For the purpose of this scenario, we're going to use the SGM incident report. This incident report requires that you enter in the top half of the report the dates and times, addresses, names of everyone involved, complainant, victims, witnesses, suspects, police officers, items stolen or missing, weapons, and more. This crime scene scenario is a burglary that you discovered at an office building. No witnesses or perpetrators were present. Your incident report narrative should read, at the above time and date, I discovered that someone had broken into the above location. I observed its door half open. I could see that the office was ransacked. I visually checked the crime scene from the open door for injured victims with negative results. I took detailed notes and initiated a crime scene protection procedure. From outside the crime scene through the door, I took photos using my cell phone camera. All photos and notebook information have been turned over to the above police officer. See, that was short and to the point, wasn't it? If you're called upon months later to testify, your notes and that incident report will help refresh your memory. Never discuss the facts. You should only discuss the facts regarding the crime or the crime scene with the police, your company's supervisor, or manager. Never discuss the case with witnesses, the suspect, or any bystanders. Never discuss the facts with the press. Because the press use scanners to monitor police activity, they often get to the crime scene before the police. It's not uncommon for the press to monitor security companies' two-way radio communications as well. Don't let the press bully you into giving a statement or allow them into the crime scene. That's the quickest way to lose your job. Let the police, your supervisor, or your company management talk to the press. If you are assigned a company two-way radio, make the notification by telephone. Remember the rules. Containment, preserve evidence, be alert, document, keep bystanders away, photograph with cell phone if you can, don't discuss the facts with anyone but the police, and stay safe. When you follow these crime scene procedures, they will be a tremendous help to the police, the crime scene technician, and the prosecutor. You'll become their new best friend. It will also improve your work skills and show that you're a professional and will prove that you're an asset to your company. This concludes the SGM training video, Protecting a Crime Scene.